Oh God, how have I come to offend thee so? Gods of Egypt, released in 2016, and is directed by Alex Proyas, who has also directed such films like The Crow, Dark City, I, Robot, and Knowing. And after reviews of this film came out after its initial release, he's not a big fan of critics much anymore. They're all vicious vultures who don't know what they're talking about and will never develop opinions of their own, and they just need to go and kiss his ass. Oh. Okay, yeah, very subtle, sir. Luckily, though, I'm not a critic and I've never considered myself to be a critic. I am a movie reviewer. I am your casual, everyday moviegoer and movie renter and movie watcher. So, really, when you are looking for a nice opinion on your art and your movie, you'll probably want to take someone like mine's opinion, or just your average theater-going person. All the people that never went to go see this movie, because it lost like a good $90 million, sir. So the critics hated it, but then also your average-going theater-goer hated it. So what's the common denominator there, sir? And this movie has a very white cast of Nicolas Coster-Waldau, Brendan Thwaites, Chadwick Boseman, Elodie Young, Courtney Eaton, Rufus Sewell, Gerard Butler, and Jeffrey Rush. And the reason why we're talking about this cinematic masterpiece today is because it was a PayPal recommendation/donation from one of my newest contributors on this channel and a new friend of mine that I've conversed with in real life, Susie. Thank you very much, so much for your donation. Any donation and support for this channel is greatly appreciated, and any recommendation that I get is greatly appreciated. Even if the film is quality stuff, or if it's a piece of dog shit like this movie, I don't care. I love getting recommendations, and it's actually nice to expand my movie palette into seeing, not just the filet mignon, but also, the scraps that you throw out in the dumpster. So thank you very much, Susie. If any of you out there want to be like Susie and help contribute and donate to this channel, you can make a PayPal donation by clicking on the donate button on the main page of my YouTube channel. Any size donation will do, and if you have a movie that you really want me to watch for you and give you a shout on the channel, you can attach your movie with your donation, and if I have access to it, I will watch it, review it, and publish my review of it as quickly as I possibly can. In the land of ancient Egypt, the gods ruled the mortal humans, and Osiris has been overseeing Egypt for thousands of years. But today is the day where he hands over his kingdom to his son Horus, or as I like to call him, a horse's ass. However, Osiris's brother Set does not like that the kingdom is being handed over to him, and he murders Osiris and becomes king of Egypt himself. Not before taking the eyes of Horus to make his powers not existent anymore. So now Set has become king of all of Egypt and is planning on taking over every single kingdom in the world so that he can mold it for himself. But thankfully, there is a mortal human by the name of Beck who's a fantastic little thief and is able to infiltrate the pyramid, grab one of the jeweled eyes, and give it to Horus, and now they make a pact to help each other because his girlfriend is killed and wants her back from the underworld, and Horus wants the kingdom again, so they help each other. It's a frickin' convoluted story, let's just put it out there. So 2016, this movie is actually older than I thought it was. I thought this thing was 2017, 2018, but we're going back to 2016, which was, gosh, a great movie year that everyone just didn't pan anything out there at all. It should have told you something, though, when this film gets a budget of $140 million, and then they set the release date for February, and February is like the dumping ground for the majority of films. So we all should have known this was coming. And I remember when this film was coming out, everyone talked about how shitty of a film this was. Susie, when she recommended this thing, said that she just watched it and thought it was a grand old piece of shit and wanted me to join in on the fun. And I want to be objective with my review here. There are things of this movie that I think are okay. It's not the worst movie that I've ever seen. It is still, though, a piece of shit. I get that movies nowadays, these big spectacle, Marvel, DC, Star Wars movies, have a whole bunch of green screens that they use to help dolly up the background and to help build this universe. Totally get that. Here, though, there's a difference between having a green screen and making it obvious that you have a green screen. Because even the lighting effects on the actual humans in studio don't match to the coloring of the lights in the background here. At one point, Horace is stabbing someone, from what I remember, and there's like a whole bunch of like purple and yellowish and dark red color lights shining on his body, but yet the background, nothing is correlating with those color choices. And I'm thinking, what the fuck? This whole film is one great big green screen spectacle of just how to piss away money. This is one of those movies that you just scratch your head thinking, the studio gave this film $140 million when we hadn't had a sword and sandal thriller epic adventure film do well, really, I want to say since Troy 2004. If there's a more recent one, let me know. $140 million. What were they thinking? Did they think that this was going to make a profit and do well? I wouldn't be shocked if they were trying to give this movie more money, and then at one point the studio was like, okay, we're going crazy here. Let's pull off, because there are scenes in this with the $140 million worth of CGI that's put into this film that look like it's 2002 The Mummy Returns CGI rock scorpion monster quality. It's like the production design wanted this to be a video game, or like had the concept of this film being a video game, and then the director saw like the schematics of it and was like, hey, that looks cool. I want to do a movie of that. Let's not make this a video game. And so they're like, hey, let's hire all of these big famous actors at the time. Let's get the guy from Game of Thrones who's a prick in there. He'll be a prick in this movie. You know, Range. Hey, let's get this other white guy. And hey, let's get this other white guy. And they'll all be Egyptians and Egyptian gods. Because as we all know, white people just rule the world. What were they thinking of casting all of these people in this movie called Gods of Egypt, when we live in a society, when we live in a culture now that's trying to be more cognizant of the idea of whitewashing in films and trying to get away from that? In here, this entire cast is it's totally tone deaf. Like, we're going back to Charlton Heston in the Ten Commandments type mentality when it comes to the studio. Hey, let's get all these white people to do the Egyptian thing, because that'll work. Hell, even like a couple years before, with Ridley Scott casting all white people in Exodus, the Moses movie. Just backlash there. The only difference between the two films is that in Exodus you had Christian Bale and Joel Edgerton, two brilliant actors, whereas in this film, everyone sucks. Chadwick Boseman shows up in here, who is a great actor in his own right. He is terrible in this movie. He plays the god of wisdom, and I don't know what the choice is. He makes a choice, and it's cartoony. And he's not the only one. Brendan Thwaites, who I really enjoy on the TV show Titans. He plays Dick Grayson. He's frickin' Nightwing, for God's sakes. He's great in that show. He is terrible here. I think this movie just set out to make all of these actors awful. Just god-awful, and give them the worst dialogue I have ever heard in a film. And they're all smartasses. It's like they're all trying to go the Joss Whedon route with the Avengers, and have them all have quippy, smart-aleck comments to each other, and then they all join up in the end. That's kind of what's going on here. Everyone has an answer for everything, and when they're in the middle of a battle, they're like, oh, whatever the dialogue is, they use that tone, and they make a point at the end, and then they go on about the battle. And the plan of Set, who's played by Gerard Butler, of taking over the world and allowing this big Galactus poop snake cloud of coming in and devouring the world, only for him to mold the world into his image, just doesn't make sense. How are you going to do that? You can't do that. There is so much in this movie that's set up just to have us have the specific two people fight each other. We have to have Set and Horace fight each other at the end. And with that out of the way, we need to have Thwaites and we need to have Sewell fight each other at the end, because that's the main conflict there. Seriously, they're taking the elevator up in this very big tower where Set is on top and saying, hey, snake poop cloud, come to me. And Sewell and Thwaites are about to get into it, and then Horace is like, no, you can't do that because we need him to help us to get to the top. And then he immediately jumps off the platform and starts climbing on the outside of the tower to leave Thwaites alone with Sewell to get to the top. I don't know. I feel like this is someone's wet dream of an Egyptian godlike movie. Like the director had one big epic dream in his mind, wrote it all down, and said, I just want to make this movie. The thing about dreams, though, is that a lot of times they don't make fucking sense. And that's what happened here. There's like no rewriting or editing of the dreams. It was just like, hey, here's my dream, now put it on screen, and it all is beautiful and makes sense, and critics are shit. Now, as I said, I was trying to be objective with my review of this film. Of course, I've gone on a little rant here, but there are things about the movie that I like, even though this cast is a very white person cast. It's a pretty damn good looking white person cast. A lot of young who I know from Daredevil and the Defenders series on Netflix, the Marvel series. I think she is stunning, and it's even amplified here, so whenever she's on screen, I go, hey, I'll just watch you. Brendan Thwaites, I think, is actually a pretty damn good looking guy. I'll look at him too. And I think in the midst of all of this CGI just throw up on screen, I think there is a story in here and a good, thrilling, epic film that could be made, or could have been made. I don't see why any studio would want to even touch this mythology or touch these characters and go, hey, let's do it again, but let's do it more grounded. Which is a shame because I think there is a good story in here. What we got on the screen, though, is not that. Some of the imagery is beautiful. There's a moment where Horace and Beck go up into space. I just said those fucking words out loud, but they go up into space because they're going to meet Ra, the god of the sun, which, again, is Jeffrey Rush, another white man. But that whole scenery is beautiful. Again, at points, there are points where you go, oh my god, this is worse than a video game nowadays. I want to say I don't recommend this film, but I almost feel like you have to watch it, because it's one of those movies that is just so shocking that it was made, and the decisions that were made in this movie are made that you just have to watch it. Not to mention that the other gods, there are other gods in here other than Set and Osiris and Ra and Horus. So at the coronation, when Set takes over and kills Osiris and takes Horus's eyes away from him, all of these other gods are just standing there. I feel like if they all combine their powers, they could overthrow him and make sure that Horus is king, and this whole thing didn't have to happen. So in other words, these gods are just giant dicks. It's definitely one of those movies that you have to see. It's hard for me to say, yes, I recommend this, go watch this movie, but I think it's one of those things that you just have to watch so that you can experience the shock and the questioning in your brain of, oh my god, how was this approved? Who stamped it? Who stamped the approval little signature on the script and said, yep, let's go into production? Who did that? Could I have their job because I could make better decisions than you can? I'm gonna give Gods of Egypt 1 out of 5 Blu-rays.
What? No!
Alright everyone, now comes my favorite part of my videos where I randomly select which movie I'm gonna be watching next, so hey, let's take a look. Terminator Genesis, or Genesis, as I like to call it. One of the Terminator films that I have never seen before. I haven't seen this one or the last one, the Dark Fate one that came out last year or a couple of years ago. I stayed away from this one because I had also heard that this film is pretty damn awful. I'm not the biggest Terminator fan. I think the first two films are just fine. The first one's a good horror picture. The second one is obviously by far the best one out of the whole series. I mean, that's the most iconic one. And Terminator 3 and 4 I think were fine in their own right, but Terminator 4 had Christian Bale, and it was like the future after Judgment Day, and they were trying to figure out how to win the war. So I would assume that this one is about winning the war too. I know it has Emilia Clarke as a young Sarah Connor. Cool. I've never seen it before. I feel like we're going to get another Gods of Egypt situation here. So, yeah. we'll check it out next time. So guys, if you've seen Gods of Egypt, what did you think about it? Do you think it's as bad as I think it is, and as everyone else in the world really thinks it is? Or is it not as bad as you thought it was? Whatever you thought, comment below, let me know what you thought about it. And as always, if you like what you see here, if you like my take on movies, then hit the subscribe button, and make sure you hit that bell so you'll know the next time I release my next movie review. So guys, I will see you next time with my review of Terminator Genisys. So in the meantime, be well, be good to each other, and go watch a movie. Take care, guys.